Hello, Tiki Gray here. We're going to be looking at a tier list for the current patch. And now this patch is, well, this tier list is subjective, but it should be fairly accurate, but anyone is free to disagree. The patch has only been out about a month, so it's still developing, obviously. But this should be roughly on point. So artillery, I'm going to go ahead and put it in C tier and not D tier. Usually it's in D tier a lot of times. This is just way too hard to get up. But ever since the barbed wire buff, it's been decent enough. And there's some very interesting structure timings that you can do that only really Meek has done, but there's a lot of potential there. And it's when your opponent goes tier 2, you just take a mill and put down MGs, since it takes 40 seconds for their first tier 2 to come out, but it only takes 30 seconds for the first MGs to come out, 20 seconds to build the mill, 10 seconds for the MG. So if both of you have 2 tier 1 warrants and they go tier 2, it's like taking an aggressive mill, put down MGs, then put down artillery. And that's surprisingly effective depending on what tier 2 the enemy. Like if the enemy started tier skunks, like those aren't gonna do shit against MGs. If they start chameleons, you can probably hold still. Snakes, that's more difficult. It depends. Since snakes will kill MGs, 2 tags I think. But yeah, I'm gonna put it in C tier. Badger, D tier. Like if the opponent has snakes, it just dies. Even if not 9 pigeons, Badger just dies. If the opponent has 4 snakes, and any ability to focus fire to Badger dies. If they have 2 snakes and have really good focus fire to Badger dies, it's just not a good unit. And it's really fragile too, since if you run Badger, you're running Pigeons, so that's a Badger which is 64 health, 180 food. Pigeons are 3 health for 20 food each. There's no HP in the army, there's nothing to tank. It's just not good. Now, Sniper Balloon. Sniper Balloon is always shaky. It's a really fun unit. Although I haven't really been using it this patch. Last patch I used it a lot more. Well, I didn't lose it a lot last patch, but I used it more. But still a solid situational unit. For either B or C tier. I've actually started trying out Boar more recently because it's a fun unit. And a lot of players go through this phase, like they're getting better at the game and they discover Boar, so they start doing Boar pushes every game, and it works against a lot of players who don't know how to scout and scout like actively, so they don't scout the Boar always in time, or they don't react right or something. So the Boar seems really good, but once you get to like the really really high tier, people are always gonna scout the Boar, or 99% of the time, people are gonna react to it correctly. So it's just a lot more difficult to use, but you can still definitely use it. And so it's either high C tier or B tier, I'm not sure. But yeah, there's no F tier. Like, you still can use the Badger. You can still win games with it. It's just really bad and difficult to use. But there's no truly F tier unit this patch. Chameleons, B tier. Like, they did get buffed since now they have less trouble finding tiles and they start hitting out of cloak faster. Like I think they instantly start attacking after they decloak. Whatever, they do it faster in last patch. That's all I know. But it's Chameleon, Falcon is just or just Chameleons are just so much worse than like Skrill Skunk or Skrill Skunk Snake. Like, you just can't compete. You just kite the Chameleons to death and they just die. And they can't attack in the bases either, which Skunks can, and they're still shit at defending bases. Like, they barely do anything. You really have to try to leverage the fact that they can cloak, so you go around sniping mills or something. Or maybe you can get a lucky flank off, but better players aren't going to die to flanks, honestly, in my opinion, if they're being on top of things. It's way too difficult unit to use. It really. I don't. I think maybe Skunks should be nerfed, but I don't think Skunks should be nerfed so much as Chameleon should be buffed, honestly. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Skunks should be nerfed since they are really strong. It's ridiculous. Falcons. I almost want to put these at like the top of B tier. But I guess they still go on A tier. See, the thing is, I used to think Falcons were really necessary, but the more I play the game, particularly against Haru and Meek, like, I never use Falcons against Meek. I just never need them. Or the game, more, I should say, never develops in a way where Falcons are necessary. Usually, like, since Meek plays in a very interesting style. And Haru, Well, Hari also plays very well, and a lot of the decks I have, like you still need Falcon since once you learn how to keep like use tier 1 and whatnot as your damage, and Skrills and Lizards just have so much better stats. Like Falcons are really only useful for the late game or for like mid game terrain abuse. The rights are not really useful in. Well, if a game ends in early game, it ends in early game, so you don't need to go to late game and build Falcons. But they're still really almost necessary late game, and they're still good mid game a lot of the time. I don't, it really, really depends on who you're playing, honestly, and what direction the game's tend to go in that matchup between those two players. Favorites are D tier. I know Pyle uses them a lot, and he's brought back to popularity, but Pyle's also really good, and he's just a lot better than a lot of the players that he's beating. Like the mid tier players are like, oh my god, Ferrets are so good. No, no offense, Pyle's just better than you. But no, Ferrets are not good. You can dodge them. They lose fights. It's you build a ferret, that's 120 food. So the opponent just spends 60 more food to build a boar or any tier 3. Then those come out and the ferrets don't do shit and you just lose. And what do ferrets counter? Structure. Well, what do ferrets do? They destroy structures and they poke. No one else does that? Snakes. Particularly pigeon snakes, since they can just regen their health whenever they take damage. So yeah. The fox, C tier. Fox is really probably one of the funnest units in the game, if not the funnest. Or most fun. But like it pretty much automatically loses once there's 2 owls out. And it usually loses anyway once 1 owl is out even. Or it can die to chameleon, ambushes, mines, they can't get past any structures. It's the dice to master 1. There's just so many game situations where it just doesn't work. Like there are some situations where it's really good, like the enemy is just doing a tier 2 buff death blob. Yeah, Fox will tear tier 2 apart, but a lot of situations where it just doesn't work. So now we start to let's talk about Skrill, Lizard, and Toad. Since multiple tier 1 is like definitely the meta of this patch. You don't really see per Skrill anymore, or per Lizard anymore. What you see is Skrill, Toad, and Squizzard. That's the predominant meta right now. And there's also Lizard Toad, but that's not as good. So let's just start with Skrills. Skrills are S tier. They're always good all-rounders. You can use them on any map. It's useful. They can defend, they can attack, they can do everything. Now Lizards. Your Lizards go in A tier or S tier. Either top of A tier or S tier. It's a really hard call. Because on some maps, Lizards just win against Skrills. But with the introduction, like, we can't really look at just one unit here. We have to look at Skrill. We're basically looking at Skrill Toad versus Skrill Lizard. That's what we're looking at when we're ranking these units, honestly. And which is better, Skrill Lizard or Skrill Toad? Because I think Squizzard is better, but Lizard Toad is definitely worse than both of them. Like Lizard Toad, it sounds good in theory, it just doesn't work in practice because it can't defend because it's a melee unit and a 2-tile range unit. And there's just lots of problems with Lizard Toad. But Squizzard versus Skrill Toad, it's complicated because lizards aren't useful late game. Toads are useful late game. That like they stay relevant. Lizards just die at a certain point against most armies. And lizards just beat Skrills or even Skrill Toad on some maps, since like lizards are about mobility and map control, and toads don't really stop that on some maps. So, or on any map, this is the actual fights for the lizards. You can defeat the lizards. So what's better, Skrill Lizard or Skrill Toad? Because like Toads do skill, but it should just end the game in earlier mid with Squizzard. Like Toads don't matter. Plus, in a straight up fight, I think Squizzard tends to beat Skrill Toad, as long as you split up your units and the ratios are good. So and then, but you can still run per Skrill. It's a lot harder to run per Lizard now. Especially just because Toad exists, honestly, and it's really have to work around that, which you can work around, but it's difficult. You have to take like a defense in your deck to deal with it, honestly. Usually. So Lizard, I almost feel like I have to put in S tier because in the preseason tournament, 3 of the 4 top players were Lizard players, me, Pyle, and Gentleman. The Arlie was the only non-Lizard player in the top 4, so that's a bit interesting to think about. I think I'll go ahead with them in S tier, honestly. Mine's either high B tier or low A tier. I might change my mind on this later in the video, but mines are like really good. But I feel like the top tier, they're too vulnerable. Or they don't work well enough. Or not reliably enough because there's two-way mines. Okay, the enemy can run across the mines, in which case they do a lot of damage, but the opponent can just go on water, go on farmland, or they can go around the mines by going a less direct path to enemy base. So if you want to make sure you can hit the enemy on all routes to your base, well, here's the thing. That's a lot of money. Mines are 20 each. 3 mines is 60 food. That's a pig. So if you put down like 5 mines, that's almost 2 pigs. Like, this is so much food to spend on mines. So if your opponent just does an attack, they will get ahead in the eco or the tech. Like, they'll have a really big eco advantage if they realize it. So honestly, and they can't be used to defend early, really, on most maps because scouting cycles early, like 10 seconds is long enough for the enemy commander to usually see them. It's very, very luck or on. It's very luck reliant on getting them out early. Well, like there's a lot of chance for it to be scouted. So I'm gonna go ahead and put them in B tier, but I think some other players will say that mines are A tier. Moles are D tier. They're just not good enough this patch. Like, you have to know that you're gonna do damage, and if you don't do a ton of damage, like, you just lose the game. Because like a mole spawns 6 times, then the warren dies, which it should probably be buffed so that the food, each mole spawn only makes the warren cost 5 food. I think would be the best thing. I don't think buffing their stats is what you want, because if you buff their stats, then you get in very lopsided situations where either the push still fails or it just completely destroys the enemy, which is, you don't really want things with extremes. I think this buffing the how much damage the warren takes when they spawn is the best solution. That was definitely A tier. Let me put it above Falcon action. I don't. I'm gonna put it above Falcon. Owl is by far the best tier 3 this patch because it's so reliable. Like, Owl's skill, the only thing that beats Owl in scaling is Wolf Badger and maybe Badger Pigeon. But if the Owl has snakes, the Badger still just die. And there are so many situations where Owl is just so good. Like, if the opponent doesn't have pigeons, they honestly can't do a lot. They basically have one chance to make their push work, but like if the opponent has like, Owl, Skunk, Snake, they'll just kite you to death. And they'll still win the game, even if you kill like their economy because they have owls, so they just get mice for free. And then you just lose all your units and they start pushing in. And it's just too difficult to keep up unless you have like 2 full mills on them or something. If you don't have pigeons. Pigeons are I don't know where pigeons go. Either bottom of A tier or top of B tier. Because again, you really want them against owls. Just so it can sustain through the attrition from mice and skunk casts and whatnot. And their reinforcements like tier 1 are spawning. You need this pigeons to sustain through the attrition. You also need pigeons to clear out the mines and get through the barbed wire too. That usually owl players have. They're just really nice for skunk snake too. But I'm gonna keep them at B tier since you don't need them. Really like an anti-owl thing in my opinion, although they are really nice. Skunks are A. Skunks and snakes are both A tier. Because like skunks, they defend well and they attack well, and 4 skunks will even usually deal with lizards in the open. But skunks just do everything well, and they also tank damage well. Like, there's nothing they don't do good. They attack in the bases very well. They defend bases very well. Once you get 4 of them, you can handle open engagements very nice. Snakes are just also very good. They deal with tier 3. They kill build. Like, they're just so strong early and mid. They just kill everything. They just annihilate other tier 2s. They defeat structures. They defeat tier 3. And they just kite really well along with skunk. So it's just really nice combination. Toads, we're gonna put them in A tier. Honestly, they might even go lower. Like, they got a buff, so everyone is using them. But I do think Squizzard is better than Toad at the end of the day, since you have the Lizard options, they just still automatically win some maps due to map control and flanking, which Lizards don't stop. They're just better against Lizards, and which Toads don't stop. Toads just beat Lizards in direct fights. They don't deal with the map control or the flanking that Lizards are about. And Toads are still this inferior to Skunks. But Toads are very good, like they annihilate cams in larger numbers, and they're still really good against a lot of armies, and they're still good against Pro Skrill too. Decently good. And there's lots of and they're really good at attacking in a war. Like if the army's on the Warrens, the Toads also kill the Warrens, so they're really nice for that. Finally, I think this is a little underutilized, but I haven't really done it myself. But I feel like Toad flanking is really decent in the Warrens. Since 3 Toads can, I believe, can they kill 2 Warrens? I'm not sure actually. They can definitely kill Warrens. Like put like, is it 2 Toads to kill a tier 1 Warren, or is it 3? I can't remember, unfortunately. It's really not awesome. But Warrens are next to each other in his AoE damage, but you can kill like maybe tier 2 Warrens. I feel like there's potential there to use them against Warrens. People just don't though. MGs are, let's put it in B tier. Yeah, a very nice unit. Ever since they got the buff like 2 or 3 patches ago, they've been nice. And and people don't really run Ferrets, so you don't have to worry about that. You only have to worry about Boar, Snake, really. Actually, Toad 2 can definitely hurt MGs, depending on the situation. But they're just a pretty good, solid unit. They're not great early game defense. They're pretty really shitty for pre-8 farm defense, usually, unless it's like a base of 1 entrance. And they're a bit expensive, so you have to know how to use them. But they're really solid in combat. They're like really good in combat, actually. Board wire is. Let me put it in the back. Okay, there we go. But yeah, probably bottom of A tier. It got nerfed. You don't really see of owl decks now. Like, I still feel like it's really strong, but at the same time, I really found myself not using it because I don't want to use a deck slot on it, so it's just kind of weird. But on some maps, like you can't break it cost effectively. Like on a lot of maps, you still can't break it cost effectively without Pigeon. So it tends to go well with Owl. Since like you just can't, like it just destroys tier 1 and even tier 2, especially if it's dark. Like if the enemy army is on barbed wire, you're not gonna get through it in the story. Because while your units are gonna be simultaneously taking damage from skunk gas and wire and the rest of it, like it's just not happening. Your army's just gonna die if the enemy army's there. And by itself, it still deals with tier 1 really well. Wolf is either top of C tier or bottom of B tier. I'm not sure. Wolf tier 2 is a thing in the past. Like that deck is dead. Like there's no, because if you go Wolf tier 2, the enemy's just gonna attack while the Wolf is building usually. Then you lose the game. And like a lot of times, if I've tried Wolf tier 2, but a lot of times I feel like I just want to build more Falcons or something. Because like I'm can just get attacked while the Wolf is building, so I'm down 360 food, which is like it's great to get the Wolf out, but getting the Wolf out is complicated sometimes. And then I don't like you can take defense in your deck, but as you're taking defense, you're sacrificing your tier 2 like army composition. So that's kind of not awesome. But you do see a Wolf. There's a lot of Wolf tier 3 compositions running around. Like Wolf Owl's super good. One of the strongest unit combos in the game was Wolf Owl in my opinion. Probably the strongest tier 3 composition. Wolf Badger also is really good, although you barely ever see it. Wolf Owl Fox is good. Wolf Owl Badger is decent. It's mainly like an anti-owl deck, but Wolf Owl Fox is like really good against decks without owl. Wolf Boar is also good. Wolf Fox is not good. I mean, it's really good against like tier 2, I guess, but it's not super awesome though. So yeah, Wolf tier 3 decks are really solid. If you can get them out. They're not something you play every game, but they're definitely good pocket pick decks that you can bring out like 1 or 2 games in a set in a tournament. It's a surprise pick, and if you get it rolling, you can't stop it really. Yeah, now let me put Skunks in S tier. Yeah, Skunks have to go in S tier. Snakes either bottom of S tier or top of A tier. I'm not sure. I use them like pretty much every game, so I'm a little bit biased. I think they're great, but some players like Gent don't use them every game. I can't remember if Arlie runs them every game or not, or how often he runs them. I think he might, but well, I don't know if he does. But yeah, this is gonna be my tier list for this current patch.